Hello and welcome back to the Percepta Leadership Series. We're back for a second version of mental health awareness live today. Rachel, I'm so excited to be here.
Me
Thanks.
too. I know. I'm glad. Do we feel like we have mental wellness on this call? How are we all feeling?
Yeah. Today we're joined by a couple of our fantastic colleagues, Shannon Gerbi and Curt Williams, and we're super excited to be talking about some stuff that's going on at Percepta, what we're doing, and just the fact that mental health awareness is this month. And what's cool, I think, Rachel, is that at Percepta, while we do obviously focus on this month, but it's not just a month long at Percepta. It's a very much focused topic that we keep front of mind all year long, which is really great. So
I love that point, Kellen, too, because it's and for those of you who, if you're seeing this particular video, we also did a video earlier this month. You'll see it on LinkedIn where we talked to Tammy Godby, who is lead director of our organizational development at Percepta, on this topic. So, but that we're just doing this right because it's such an important topic. It is meant to be year round, and so we've got a lot to share about it, obviously, right?
yeah, and one of the stats that I saw real quick, and I do want Shannon and Curt to both introduce themselves. So sorry, but 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness each year. I think that's a really interesting thing to think about, and we're going to talk about the stigma around that today. And I think it's going to be a really interesting show. So enough of us kind of blabbing here. Why don't we let Shannon and Curt introduce themselves? Shannon, I'll let you go first and give the folks here, our audience, a little introduction of who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thanks, Kellen. I'm Shannon Gerbi. I am the Leadership Development Coach and Instructional Design Specialist for Global Organizational Development. And I create, design, deliver all things leadership related here at Percepta. And one of my, newest special projects with my colleague Tammy Godby is that last year we became certified mental health first aid instructors through the National Council for Mental Health and Well-Being. So that's my purpose of participating today about something that I'm passionate about.
You are very passionate about it, and it's always evident when we're on calls with you about the mental health side of things. So thank you for what you do. It's really, really great. And Curt is one of your, I would say, big advocates for that, and we're very excited and happy to have Curt on. So Curt, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Kellen. And I will say, start off, I am a huge advocate of the work that these guys are doing. You said, my name is Curt Williams, Executive Director of Operations. I, along with my peers, run the operations side of the business globally. Most of my time is spent here in the North American market. Offices up in Canada, down in Mexico, locations here in the US. Melbourne, Florida is one of my big locations, as well as a lot of remote employees that are scattered across the United States.
I and Curt, thank you both, and Shannon for joining. I just want to point this out. I think it's so cool, and we're going to dig into how cool this is, but I think it's so cool that when we're talking about mental health, we're not just featuring people who work in the human capital department. Shannon, Kellen, myself, we all work in human capital. We're about the humans, right? We're here for all aspects of an employee and their life and their balance and their health and wellness at our company. But it's not just on our department. Curt, you're representing operations, and actual doing of work, but you're obviously, and we're going to learn more about this as we continue to dig in, but you are part of that solution too. And so I just think it's refreshing when you don't just see human capital professionals talking about mental health.
No, absolutely. I took the course, the first aider course that Shannon leads, and I wanted to get engaged and involved in this because it's important to me. As I have said, we've got thousands of employees, like 4,040, I think we're 4,500, give or take a few right now. But the vast majority on the ops side, the ones that make the wheels move and push everything forward. So it's important that as we engage with our employees, and particularly now that we're coming back on site and we're bringing more people back into the physical facilities, a hybrid environment, or even full time, that operations is face to face with those individuals. And because of that, we're kind of that front line and interfacing with people and our employees at all levels. And I just thought it was important that the operations staff, as opposed to just the HR or just this group or just that group, but the operations gets involved. And so that was why I kind of kicked it off and wanted to be at the front end, and had a great experience with Shannon, learned a tremendous amount.
And we're doing a lot, Shannon. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what we've got going on? And again, just to reiterate, we are talking about it this month because it is Mental Health Awareness Month, but this is a thing that's year long. So please, Shannon, give us a little bit more information of the stuff that we're doing at Percepta.
Well, I can tell you about the pieces that Global Org Development touches, and that is the Mental Health First Aid Guide training. We're calling you all guides because we are putting people in place to signpost, to be that, like Curt was saying, that kind of front line, that first line of defense, of somebody that you can reach out to who can put you in touch with the right people, the right resources in order to support mental health. And this is an initiative we started last year. Had 2 cohorts of classes that we graduated last year. This is our first cohort of 2023 with more operations folks on it than we've had in the past. So that's great. Another piece that has been launched this month is a micro-learning experience. Percepta Professionals is actually going to be an ongoing multi-channel professional learning opportunity for employees of every level, from agents to executives. And they're quick, bite-sized pieces of learning, but on topic around a monthly theme. So it was very appropriate that this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and the micro-learning was on mental health, removing the stigma, because that really is, that's a huge piece of what we want to accomplish. Of course, we want to reach out and let people know that we're there for them. But honestly, if we can remove even some of the stigma and get some other people in place to help with that, that would be a huge victory all around.
Yeah, and I want to just take a moment. We know this is getting broadcast out on our LinkedIn channel. For those of you watching, one way we remove the stigma, and we did talk about this on the last episode we had with Tammy, is that we talk really openly. I think that everybody on that call, and I know we're going to talk about it today, but we talked really openly about our own challenges. And that's where I think you do such important work, because it can be super scary for an employee to be like, I am struggling, but do I tell anybody at work? And sometimes, they try, I think we all try to say, let me compartmentalize that. Sometimes you just can't. It's overwhelming. And I think it's got to be a huge relief to know that there is safety in talking to someone at work about it and saying, we have resources. We're not going to try to have you sweep this under the rug, but it's super important to tackle. But Kellen, I don't know what you think about that too, because I think we were super honest with that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, perfect example was that my daughter had a little bit of a thing at school today, and I had to go and take care of that situation. And the first thing I did was send my boss, Rachel, a quick message and said, hey, I got to go handle something. And it was not an issue. I wasn't nervous about it, and it was great. And she said, go handle what you need to handle, So I think that's a really good thing that we're able to shine that light a little bit and just know that, things happen and we need to be able to go and handle that sometimes. And that's acceptable and cool.
Yeah.
And that's that stigma. Sorry.
Exactly. No, thank you. And Shannon, so I think we want to hear a little bit more about, the trainings you do and things like that. Can you dig into that a little bit more for us? Because I have a feeling we're eventually going to kind of segue this into the, how did Curt, what's he learning from all this stuff? But tell us more.
Are we talking about specifically around the mental health first aid training?
Yeah.
It's a 2-day training. It's a huge commitment, honestly, for the folks who volunteer their time to come become certified. In addition, there's 2 hours of pre-work that has to go into it before you're allowed to come to the in-person instructor-led training. So, over the course of those, the almost 8 hours that we spend in the classroom and the 2 hours that are spent in preparing. And then Curt will remember this too. Of course, there's an exam piece. You are actually certified by the National Council for Mental Well-Being with a 3-year mental health first aid certificate. So it's a pretty big deal, and it's a pretty big commitment. But it covers, just like a paramedic, right, who would come to the aid of someone who was in physical distress. We are preparing mental health first aiders to come to the aid of someone who may be experiencing or at risk of experiencing a mental health challenge. So recognizing those signs and symptoms, early warning signs, worsening warning signs, and we do get into some pretty heavy topics. We do get into talking about suicide, and we actually use the term shining a light, because these are topics that are left unspoken.
Yeah.
And, so we are trying to shine a light on those and put more people in place with eyes, and ears, who are on that front line, like in operations.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool that Shannon, you guys are able to kind of help facilitate this. And then Curt, it's really great that you guys are volunteering to do this stuff, because let's just call it real, right? It's not necessarily part of your job to have to do this, but you guys are able and willing to say, no, I care about my people. I want to know when someone might be at risk of something happening or having issues. And I want to, dedicate that time, which I know, Curt, you don't have that time to do all the time, but it's not a question for you. I know it.
Oh, it's a great point. Shannon described it as 2 hours prep. I don't know if she speed reads, or my comprehension level was just down a lot. It took a little more than that. It is a time commitment, but we're blessed with working for a company that has a lot of resources and provides a lot of resources for our employees. And at the end of the day, we're a people business. That Percepta is a people business. So I look at it as an investment in our people. It's an investment in our employees. And it is business. And, there's a lot of things that we do day in and day out that are stressful, that are related to the business. Being in customer service is not the easiest job. There is a lot of things that happen between the time we open and close that people find quite stressful. And you never know, and that's what I learned out of this, and the beauty of this class was, we've got to remember life goes on. People have lives outside of Percepta, and you never know what they're dealing with. So what I took away from it is, and what I'm looking for, is that ability to see, ability to observe, and ability to talk to people. And Shannon said it, there's a spectrum. We got bookends. And I think when you say mental health, and part of that stigma is, we think in terms, the average person, and I include myself in that because prior to the training, somebody that's going through a psychotic episode, somebody that's really fallen off. But before they got to that point, there were so many triggers that were occurring that could have been interrupted had somebody seen it, had somebody reacted appropriately and got them the help they needed. What I was found to be one of the more interesting is in learning, taking this back into the office, is there are these triggers. It doesn't have to be psychotic. It's just somebody's anxiety, sick child. And you throw all that into a very stressful job. And there are times when people need help, and we want to have people available to see that are going to react and going to get the help they need. That's the beautiful thing about working at Percepta. Through the ERP program, we have got those resources. We can put them in contact and help them through a very stressful time.
You really are. You are an extension. And Shannon, I'd like to bounce back. How is it? I just want to know how it feels for you when you are, doing the co-training with Tammy, or, anytime you're engaging and trying to build up this additional resource through these volunteers to create these and train and certify these mental health first aid guides. How does that feel for you to know that this is an additional resource that is now it's permeating out into our floors and into our, people's, even to people's desks and things like that. How does that feel for you?
It feels like I'm making an impact, and it feels really good. And if we're being completely transparent, during the actual, 4 hours each day that we're doing this live, and I'm, reliving a lot of that learning. It's very emotional, and it is honestly, it's draining. And I think everyone in the room experiences things a little bit differently, and we all have different triggers too. The first 2 times I did this, I had to turn my camera off and cry a couple of times. There are things that touch us in different ways that no one else would know. No one else would guess that about me. I'm always smiling. But it can be very hard. So just knowing that, I have kind of the privilege of being able to bring more people into the know, with support tools and resources, it makes me feel really good, because the more help that we can get out there, the more we can just be human to each other and look at each other like humans. The better off we're going to be as an organization, and just as, human citizens.
And Shannon, roughly how many guides would you say that we have now at Percepta? Can you give us a guess?
Probably just under 50. We've trained probably close to 30 last year. In this last class, we had 17. We've had a couple of folks move on, but luckily they got to take their certifications with them. So just under 50. Mm-hmm.
That's really, really cool. That's really awesome.
It is. And then Curt, I know you've talked, and I love what you were sharing too. It's obvious, like Kellen said, you're very passionate about this, and we appreciate that. I think you have to be to realize that you can be part of the change people need in their life, even if it's just an empathetic ear to what they're going through. How about your fellow leaders and the people that you work with, how are you kind of using the training that you're getting from Shannon and the organizational development team, to I just love to kind of say, how are you executing this, or sharing it around?
Well, Shannon is a limited resource, but she is graciously, Tammy have both graciously offered to add some additional classes. The reason I took it is I wanted to find out, what is this thing all about? What do we learn? And is it going to meet our needs? Let's say we've had, unfortunately, several events, even in the last 3 to 4 months. And that's what triggered my engagement. Why I wanted to get involved in this is that we've had employees that have been in a mental health crisis, and I felt like we could do something different. So what I'm going to do for my leaders, and I've reached out to several peers and said, I think we as a leadership team need to bring our frontline troops in, our leadership. So I'm offering up, and I'm going to make sure that they, hear it, that all of my leadership, direct reports, and even the indirect management level, I want them to go through this class. I know it may not be for everybody, but I've asked them to go through it. Talking with my peers, they feel similarly. As I said, we're 4,500 employees in this company. Somewhere in the range of 3,800-ish work in operations. So we can get trained in operations to see, watch, listen, and talk to people ahead of time. That's that intervention that I'm talking about, and getting them to the right resources and getting them the help that they need at the point in time they need. I think it'll have just an amazing benefit for the company.
Yeah.
Thank you for leading by example, Curt. It's really inspiring, and it's really great to see, and it makes me happy, and I know that it makes everybody happy to see that too. So that's really, really great. And I know, Shannon, that you guys are probably going to need some help. Sounds like. We'll see what we can do about that.
It's a good problem. It's a good
problem. It's a good problem.
Yeah. But no, that's really cool. And I just wanted to kind of end with or start wrapping up anyway with, we talked the last show about breaking the stigma, and I think that I think we are doing that right here. All of us are helping to do that. And I think I'm not trying to toot our horns. I'm just trying to say, like, this is how it starts, by breaking the stigma, by having these frank conversations, talking about it, saying it's okay sometimes to not be okay. Like, it's okay. And I think that that's really important. And I think for anybody that's maybe watching out there and maybe doesn't even work for Percepta and is just curious, like, how do I get started on this? I think you just got to start having these conversations. You got to just not be afraid to say, hey, we need to start talking about this. And Shannon, if you have anyone, and not just Shannon, Curt, anybody, if you got anything to add to that, I'd love to hear it. But I think it's just important to just start talking about it and bringing it up and saying it's okay to have these conversations. It's okay for them to our employees to not be okay. We need to put these things in place, like first aider training, to make sure that we are being proactive on this, because that's where it starts, is being proactive and being able to give those resources. And look, too, it's not like we have a ton of resources doing this. We have 2 people doing it at our company. So it can be done with limited resources. Not saying it isn't hard, because I'm sure it is, but it can be done.
I just want to add, thank you so much, Kellen, that, we are mental health first aiders. We are not mental health professionals as well. So we're here to signpost and to, anyone who has questions about it, please feel free to reach out to me, Teams, email, anything. I'd be happy to put you in touch with the right resources, or if you want to find out more about mental health first aid, put you in touch with the Mental Health and National Council for Mental Wellbeing. There's plenty of information out there, and I'm just excited for all of the interest.
And Shannon, if somebody maybe doesn't necessarily work for Percepta but is interested in watching this, we'll tag you on LinkedIn and maybe they can reach out to you there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Well, Curt too, we might tag you as well, because again, it might start with human capital and training, but it's intended to, because really the change you all are making is going to go beyond Percepta.
Yeah.
It's going to hit family members and friends and loved ones. And I think you're just creating a ripple effect that's incredible.
Yeah, it's really, really great.
Kellen started with about 1 in 5 adults are going to experience some sort of a mental crisis at some point in their life. The vast majority, it's very small. It's time bound, and we all get through them. We go on and we go about our jobs. What I hope is we can, as you said, we're impacting families, we're impacting individuals by getting them the help that they need at that point in time. And it's just a matter of being observant and having a frank conversation. And I love the way you put it. It's eliminating the stigma. Let's just have a conversation.
All right.
Well, thank you guys so much, both of you, Curt, Shannon, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. For all of our loyal watchers, I almost said listeners, watchers, thank you for continuing to stay with us. There will be more coming up in the Percepta Leadership Series. Hope everybody has a great rest of your day, rest of your week. Thanks
Stay well, everyone.